Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to the Easter Pod. I'm your host, Corey Easterday, and on this episode, we are chatting with the one and only Mathu Gibson. As we cover in our conversation, Mathu is a former NFL and CFL player turned educator who currently serves as the Associate Director of Family Empowerment for the national social impact implementation firm headquartered right here in Charlotte called SchermCo. Mathu also has a blog and podcast called Wisdom in the Room, and generally speaking, is always creating very uplifting, very inspiring, and very encouraging content. Those that know me well know that I'm a big sports nerd, I guess a bit of an oxymoron, if you will. And so it's always just a lot of fun for me to, as somebody that grew up loving sports and playing sports just recreationally for fun most of my life, it's always fun to chat with athletes and to hear their stories, especially in the case of someone like Mathu, who has not only worked hard to achieve some really cool things from an on-field standpoint, but has always dedicated his life to work off the field in a variety of communities that has had a very tangible and positive impact in each community where he serves. Basically, if you're looking for someone who embodies the mission of this show, who is inspiring and helps you aspire to engage the world around you with creativity and hope, Mathu is your guy, and this is the conversation for you. As always, thanks for listening to the podcast, and be sure to check out our last episode with my longtime friends and very, very talented musicians, the Talbot Brothers. I've known the Talbot Brothers for a little over a decade at this point, which is crazy to think about. So it was really great catching up during their most recent tour as they stopped through Charlotte and played a show, and we hung out, and it was a great day. Honestly, it was very good to see them in person and catch up. And when they were here with me in the podcast studio where I record out of at Huga Co-working here in Charlotte, we were able to have a really deep and insightful conversation covering so many things. Their music, which is, again, very incredible, by the way, and you should check out, and just getting their overall thoughts on life as touring musicians and performers, and what it ultimately means to engage the audience while trying to be the most holistic version of yourself on stage and off. As with all my guests, it's definitely worth a listen, and it was a really fun conversation to have, which, if you're new to the show, that's all I'm basically trying to do here. I just want to connect with people that are inspiring to me and doing whatever they can within their chosen industry, career, whatever, to just positively impact change and their immediate circle of influence and everyone they meet, and just somebody that's kind of leading the way in some really cool ways. Those are the kind of people I love chatting with, and that's what this conversation is today that you're listening to, and all the episodes we've done up until this point. So be sure to dive into past episodes if this is your first time listening, and follow the show on social media at the Easter Pod on all platforms. Subscribe on your podcast platform of choice so that you never miss an episode. Also, it's been a while since I've included this part in the intro, but if you feel so compelled, be sure to leave us a rating and review. I know you can do that on Apple, Spotify, most platforms. It really helps the show, and it is very much appreciated. Before we dive in, special thanks to my friend Corey Easterday and Speak Seldom for creating the music for this episode, and to my guy JD Laird and his company Token for helping to produce this episode. Check out Token's work by visiting tokencreative.co. Lastly, and most importantly, check out Mathu Gibson and all his work on social media at History in the Making on Instagram, where you can also find his link tree and links to all of the content he's created, at Wisdom in the Room on Twitter. Visit scherm.co, SCHERM.co, to check out the work of SchermCo. And you can check out all of Mathu's links in the show notes for this episode. And of course, be sure to engage with his inspiring content everywhere it's available. Without further ado, my conversation with Mathu Gibson. So For those that don't know, the Easter Pod, my podcast, welcome, Corey Easterday, is recorded out of the podcast studio here at Huga Co-working in Charlotte, North Carolina, which is an incredible company filled with incredible people in the co-working space, on staff, all that good stuff. And more importantly, to this point, it's how I originally got connected with my guest today. Huga also has a great monthly event called 0 Day, where members can talk about anything for 10 minutes, which is also where I heard for the first time Mathu Gibson share his story about being a former NFL player turned educator, sharing all about the power of rest and vulnerability, mental health, all this good stuff. It was a very powerful talk, and it's been a pleasure getting to know him a bit more, sharing the co-working space ever since. Mathu Gibson, welcome to the Easter Pod. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for the introduction. I really appreciate that. It's heartwarming.
Of course. I'm a big believer that everyone should have a great introduction about themselves at some point in their lives. So
no, it makes me feel good. You know, after a long day, it's one of those things. Oh, okay. I feel affirmed and I feel ready.
You are affirmed, my friend. That's why you're on this podcast. And I'm happy to affirm you in that way and give you a great intro. And honestly, it wasn't even that great of an intro because there's so much I missed in there about who you are and your story and what you do. So we're going to get into all that. That's why you're on the show. And speaking of your story, I think it would be helpful. So by the time this episode's out, I'll have shared some of this in the intro I record up top. But I want to get some background for the listener on who you are, how you've gotten to this point, what you're doing now. So for anyone that doesn't know you, give us just the basic overview, kind of the highlights, the bullet points of what you're doing now, how you got to where you are now, all that good stuff.
Yeah. I always like to start it off when people ask me who you are, right? A lot of times we like to answer with the things that we do. Oh, I'm this profession or I'm this profession. But for me, I'm starting to learn that when people ask me that, I like to tell them I'm a dreamer. I am a dreamer. I'm a creative. I'm a leader. All these different things. So that's first and foremost who I am. I'm a dreamer. And my story and to where I am today has always been filled by a dream. And so I guess my dream first began in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. That's where I was born. I was the youngest of four, born in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. I was the only boy in the house, 3 older sisters. My parents, my mom, she was born in Liberia. So I grew up in an immigrant household, Liberian household, but I was also living in America. So it was like having 2 different lives in some ways. But at the same time, for me growing up, you know, I was always kind of this shy kid in some ways, quiet, introverted in some ways. But then as I got older, I got introduced to sports, started playing football when I was in high school. 9th grade was my first time actually playing organized football. And in 6th grade, I went out for Pop Warner. My friend, my sisters, my mom, they put up the money for me to go out there. On the first day of practice, I was like, this isn't football. And I quit. I literally walked off the field. That was like a shameful moment. But it was like full circle. 9th grade came back around and I was mature enough. I was ready. I started training and working out and realizing what all goes into it. 9th grade, I played football. I didn't really play. I played like 2 snaps all season. And then from there, I remember talking to one of my coaches, and I was like, do you think I could play college football? And he was like, yeah, if you work hard enough, you can do it. And I was honestly, I didn't believe in myself at the time that I could do it. I was really just asking him, and he didn't shoot me down. So I'm like, all right, there's some hope there. So that year, I remember working extremely hard. And from that point, I basically started every single game from my sophomore season to my senior season. You know, I was on JV sophomore year, but then senior year, senior year, I started every game as offensive lineman. Come senior year rolls around, you know, I'm wanting to go play college football. And at the end of the season, I didn't have any offers, but like the day before National Signing Day, which is when our football players sign their letter of intent to go to college, the day before I get a call from Wingate University and they say, hey, we're going to offer you a scholarship. We want you to come out here and play. And so for me, that's when the next opportunity of this dream that I always wanted to do. So even then, before I got to college, I always wanted to play in NFL. That was my dream. That was my baby. That was my thing. And so I went to Wingate University, got a scholarship. I redshirted my first year, so I didn't play. I just sat there and worked out, got bigger, got better. And then going into my redshirt freshman year, I was a starter, and I started every single game in my career except one. I got hurt. So from there, I was a 4-year starter. And come to my senior year, at the end of it, I was like at this crossroads. In my heart, I told a few people, maybe my closest friends, that I wanted to play in NFL, but that is something that I always used to have written on my wall. I would look at it and I would see it every single day. I will play in the NFL. And so now it was like this opportunity. I hadn't talked to any NFL teams or anything like that. So it was like, it's that time. It's time this is what I want to do. I had the opportunity to play in an all-star game. And after that all-star game, I felt inspired, because I was competing against other college athletes from Division I schools and things like that nature. And so I realized, all right, I think I have what it takes. It's like that I started believing more in that dream. And I remember writing this down. It was in January 2016. I wrote down on a piece of paper, still have the piece of paper. I said, I will be on an NFL or CFL team by August of 2016. That was my dream. That was my thing. And, I'm a big fan of the book called The Alchemist. And it's like, it's this quote that says, when you really want something, all of the universe conspires in helping you to achieve it. And I really believe that was my story in that time. And so literally wrote that down. And from that moment, just started off doing workouts in my backyard. And then it's just funny how things started to fall in line from people helping me to get to where I needed to be. I could sit here and talk for hours about it. But to make a long story short, in August of 2016, I was working a basketball camp, right? So after the NFL draft, I skipped over this. But after the NFL draft, I didn't get a call, but I got an opportunity with the New York Jets for a rookie minicamp tryout. Went up there, and I did great. And once again, one of those opportunities, you are competing against Division I guys. I'm like, whoa, I'm actually keeping up. So in some ways, I'm impressing myself. But I didn't get signed. They sent me back home, and I'm back home training for at least 3 months. And every single day I'm working out, just preparing for my opportunity. In my mind, in my heart, I did get discouraged at different times, but in my mind, in my heart, I'm like, it's going to happen. I'm going to get the call. I used to sleep with my ringer off because I know I want to be ready when that call comes. So August of 2016, I am working a basketball camp in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And during the lunch break, I get a call from a Colorado area code number. I listened to the voicemail, and it was the Denver Broncos asking if I had been working out. I didn't even let the voicemail go. I didn't even complete the voicemail, pick up the phone, listen. And they basically want me to come out there. So I call them back. They say, hey, can you get out here tonight? I'm like, yes, I am ready. I've been working out. Let's do this. They flew me out that night. I landed in Denver probably that evening, and then woke up the next morning, worked out in front of all the executives. John Elway was there. It was just one of these things where opportunity meets preparation. And all of the workouts that I did on the field for them was literally workouts I did every single day. So it was just like, wow, I am ready. And they ended up cutting the workout short and was like, hey, forget it. Sign them. Sign them. And so I signed with the Denver Broncos August 4th, 2016. My birthday is August 6th. August 6th. And so what's crazy when we look back on it all, in January, I said I would be playing for an NFL or CFL team by August of 2016. And lo and behold, 2 days before my birthday, this is the gift that I was given. And so it was a blessing. It was all of those things. I remember just feeling like at the top of the mountain, this is what I've been working for years. And, they say that NFL stands for not for long, which is true in this way, but it's, to make it there, you're still part of that 1%. But I got released at the end of training camp. And from there, I went to the Canadian Football League and played with the Montreal Alouettes until about May of 2017. And then from there, my football career was over. At the time, I didn't realize it, but it was over. And I always remember feeling like, gosh, dang, who am I? Who am I? Like, what do I do? Like, lost, depressed. I couldn't even acknowledge that it was depression at the time. That's exactly what it was. Deep depression, and couldn't even watch football. But my coach at the time from college, Coach Kazaya, had called me out and was like, hey, man, why don't you just come coach with us this season? And so I went back to Wingate, coached that year, was really working with the guys and the players, and just I felt like I was a good players coach. I was assistant offensive line coach, working campus security to make some money. It was just crazy, just trying to figure out what am I supposed to do now that I'm not playing football. And so during that time, I was really invested in building with some of the younger guys on the football team, but also doing stuff in the community. So I used to I did a reading buddy program with the football guys and also the different schools in Union County. And then I also did some stuff with the Boys and Girls Club. So that was kind of the things that used to make me feel like, yeah, I like this. I like giving back to the community. I like being a part of the community in all those different ways. And so from there, at the end of that season, it was great. We won the conference championship, but I also felt like there was more to me. There was so much more to me. And then from there, I went back home. I could go on for hours, joined a leadership development program called the Winston-Salem Fellows, which helped me to, kind of find my God-given purpose, but also at the same time be connected to so many people and like learn more about myself. I took so many assessment tests and just like Myers-Briggs, Enneagrams, all these different things that kind of help you EQ, just learn more about yourself. And during that time, I felt like I was able to grow, was able to heal, and just kind of find some things about myself. And just to make to move the conversation along forward, at the end of that program in 2019, one of my friends, Candace, she had reached out to me and said, they have an opening at the school called Invest Collegiate. And we want you to, if you're interested, I think you'd be a good fit for it. At first, I never envisioned myself working in the school or working in education ever. But when she started explaining the role, it sounded like all the things that I have done in my life before, whether it be like mentorship, helping young people, really helping them understand themselves better, working with families, working just and for me too, working in Black and brown communities, that's what really I wanted to do. I wanted to get back and give back and be a part of that to help young, specifically for real, young Black men see that be a good example. I wanted to be that example. And so I was able to go there, and I was at this position called an opportunity specialist. It was essentially a lot of hats, but I worked with children who had some behavioral issues, but I also worked with their families, to kind of try to be a bridge between the school and the families and work with the students that basically help them understand themselves better emotionally. And did that for 3 years. My last year there, I was mostly community relations. And essentially from there, that is what brought me into my current position, in which I work for a company called SchermCo. I'm Associate Director of Family Empowerment. And so now I work with 16 Title I, different 16 Title I schools, 14 here in Charlotte. And essentially what we do is we help schools build great relationships with the families. And connect families to different community resources and things like that. So it's really impactful work, and it's rooted in empowering families.
That's incredible, man.
That's a lie. I feel like I just talked. All right.
Listen, no, you could have kept going. Honestly, I really appreciate you. Hey, interviews. No, I'm kidding.
Thank you.
No, that was Mathu Gibson, ladies and gentlemen. No, there's so much to unpack in there, obviously. But What I want to say is I appreciate you diving into your story in such great detail and really just helping the audience and myself understand that connection of, like you said, it's kind of a funny question, or telling more about yourself or whatever, because you're right. We do tend to lead with what we do and kind of those things. So I appreciate you striking that balance throughout your whole storytelling of, this is who I am. I'm a dreamer. This is like who I am at my core, and not just like the job or the role or the title I have at any given time, because there is a through line for yourself and for all of us in all the titles you've had, all the things you've done of like, Matthew is a human being, right? Not just a human doing. It's the cliche, but it's true. Like that's important to remember. But also just how it connects with your dreams and what you did do, what your role was, working so hard to achieve that NFL dream, which is no small feat. Like you said, that 1%, I mean, regardless of how it all turned out, I mean, I obviously don't need to tell you this, but just, it's for people that may not be as acquainted with that process in general, like you are the 1%. Like it's extremely hard to even make that. But then to me, like to take it a step further and, I feel like for a lot of people, you could maybe rest on this idea of, oh, I achieved this great thing regardless of how it worked out. But then you took it a step further of making the connection for like, now how can I go on to continue to achieve great things, not just for myself, but for people that I want to give back to or help out or serve or have a positive influence with, to help empower and treat with dignity, all that stuff. So I think the way you described it is very powerful, just the way you told your story, making those connections. And one thing, because I do want to unpack and get into some of the things you mentioned, like your current role and all that kind of stuff. But one thing I wanted to kind of point out, I don't know if you've ever thought of it this way, but what motivated you? Because I guess it's a two-part question. Do you feel like it's a harder path for people like yourself that achieved such a great accomplishment, like becoming a professional athlete, to then transition into doing like you said, you kind of lost that sense of identity? Like maybe talk about that in a broad sense, how you've seen that in other people, like that, making that transition, maybe some of the struggle. But I'm just curious what motivated you, like what's inside of you as you've thought about it that made you someone that to me is kind of special and unique, in that you continue to go on to say like, well, how can I continue to achieve, but then also achieve on behalf of others? If that makes sense. So maybe just speak to all that a little more.
Yeah. I think so. The first part is just like the question that you're asking me is, what is the struggle essentially of being somebody who was a former athlete to transitioning into everyday life?
Yeah, because you described, you spend your whole life working toward that one goal, and then waking up the next day, what's not,
Yeah. I think so. Just it's hard. It's hard as crap. I think it is. I think not everybody. Let me slow down. I think people struggle. Like a lot of athletes struggle initially, and some athletes don't ever come back from that because it is your identity. And unfortunately, if you don't have that revelation that who I am is not what I do, then you're going to always continue like trying to chase that past glory, right? Versus recognizing this was an aspect of who I once was, but now I can take those skills that made me successful in that past life and apply them into something new, right? Because we're forever going to be changing in what we do, but the things that made us successful in that past life was really internal, right? So for me, I was a leader of men. I knew how to encourage people. I had a work ethic. I was mentally tough in a lot of ways. It's more things that I probably can name. I just can't name them right now, but I take that to put that into who I am now versus like trying to continue to chase the past glory. I think that could be a really hard thing for former athletes, especially and that's for any level. But if you play at that high level, right? What happens when you don't have all the affirmation from thousands of screaming fans? What happens when you don't have the constant feedback of coaches telling you how to, fix this step or fix that step or make this tackle, right? What happens when you don't have that constant feedback? A lot of it's ego driven. I won't lie. But your ego is being killed, which can honestly be a good thing in some ways to help you discover your true identity and your true purpose. And I think that to segue to your next question is that for me, I always felt, even when I played football, that my life was more than just football. I used to have these moments where I would be like, I wonder what life would be like if I wasn't doing this, right? And so I always realized for me that my purpose in life was, I guess for me, is what I connected, is that my purpose in life is to help people discover the truest versions of themselves. And so for me, that's like trying to live in a way which I'm doing that. And in me doing that, it's like, hopefully I could be able to help somebody else going through the same situation that I've been through, whether it be sports related or life related, or just being able to relate and help somebody, encourage somebody to be themselves and live on purpose. If that makes sense.
All that makes perfect sense. I think it's a common thread that I've seen. Every guest I've had on the podcast, or every person that is somebody that is inspirational to me in some way, everyone's story is unique and different and has its own unique context. But I do feel like there are some common threads you can pull out of what makes someone successful, what helps someone exactly as you just described, like kind of get from point A to point B in the way you described it. And to me, what I hear come up over and over again in different ways as I talk with people is it's kind of that two-sided coin of exactly what you said. Like you're working on becoming the truest version of yourself. And then in gaining that like self-awareness and placing the importance on self-care and all the things of that nature, it's like then that's when you're able to really kind of help step back and start to empower the people around you. Maybe I used to have a therapist that would describe it as like holding space for other people. You're able to like hold more space for the people around you and help them on their journey and all that kind of stuff. So I do see that as being a common thread, kind of what you shared about working on yourself and then using that as a means to try and help be a positive influence for others.
Yeah, build that empathy,
That's a key word, yeah.
Yeah, empathy. Creating that empathy for others because you also recognize it in yourself.
Yeah, I've heard there's an organization called Giant Worldwide that several of my friends work for. It's like a leadership development.
Okay.
I'm going to do a poor job describing it, but they're kind of in that world. One of the definitions they have of love that has always stuck with me and I've always resonated with is love means fighting for the highest good of others. And when we talk about self-care and self-love, I think it, as you do a lot in your work, I think it can be a big time struggle for us to define or understand how to fight for our own highest good.
Yeah.
But again, I keep making that connection, but with your story, but in general, like when you're able to work on that, it helps you be better about fighting for other people's highest good.
For sure. And I think it inspires, it inspires you to do work that's in alignment with that.
Yes.
With who you are, who you really are.
Yes. And how can you do work that's in alignment with that if you're not sure of your own kind of identity? Right. Or like you said, you always felt like you were more than, the phrase popularized by, LeBron and his career, like more than an athlete, but like you always kind of felt that in your soul before that was a, stated thing like that of like, I'm more than just what I'm doing right now. I am Matthew and I have a purpose and a vision that's greater than just like what I do on the football field, which is not to diminish that or say it's unimportant. That's what, but you have to have like a holistic view of yourself. And I think that helps you do the same for others.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Speaking of, so to get into a little of like the work you do now. So I love that title with SchermCo. SchermCo, this is very like inside baseball, as they say, but being at Huga at the Wesley Heights location, when I first started here, it's just, SchermCo is just in the space all the time. Like the SchermCo crew is always out. So I was always fascinated. Like, what is SchermCo? What do they do? It's like a great bunch of people to be a part of. So talk a little bit about your role. I love that title, Associate Director of Family Empowerment for SchermCo, working in education, all the stuff you shared about your past experience, but just what you're doing now, what that looks like day to day.
Yeah. So like I previously stated, so I'm the Associate Director of Family Empowerment. I work with my coworker, Gia. She's the Director of Family Empowerment. She does an amazing job. She's great. But we work at SchermCo, and essentially on the family empowerment side, what we do is we have 14 Title I schools here in Charlotte that we work with. We have another one in Durham, and then we have a partner in Hawaii. But essentially, we take that data from surveys, give that information, break it down into an analysis, and we give it to schools to say, hey, this is what your families think about you. These are the best times to have events for your families. These are the best time. More importantly, these are the resources that your families are asking for. So it could be financial literacy classes. It can be mental health, physical wellness, workforce readiness training, all these different things that families are actually needing. And so what we do is we go to these schools and we begin to start to plan 3 or 4 different events that's rooted in that. And so in these events, we are able to connect families to these different community partners that we have built relationships with. But it's all in order for schools to be like these safe havens for families to get the resources that they need so that they can become economically mobile and empowered, to stand on their own 2 feet as well. And so it's about empowering families. That's essentially what we do.
Yeah, and you and I were talking offline before we started recording, because you and I are still developing our soon-to-be best friendship. I'm kidding. That's what I like. Long-time listeners of the podcast will know that I can be a little bit socially awkward, and sometimes I just like to lean into that, and
just do it, embrace yourself. Right?
No, but we're still building our friendship. So I was kind of giving you more context and like my background working with Current Initiatives, the nonprofit I work for, and we were talking just about that idea of viewing the communities that you work in when you're kind of in this line of work as being, everyone has like a lot of this like inherent, potential and tools and skills as just like being human beings. There's like a inherent dignity to that. Right. Like, so it's kind of that word we use in our organization. And I know certainly many other organizations use is like, you're affirming the dignity of people you work with. You're not like giving it or bestowing it. Like, this is mine to give you. It's just affirming that. And then using that word like under-resourced, underserved, those kind of words is meant to notate like, because everyone has this inherent dignity, it's exactly what you laid out with your job description, just helping to connect the dots, provide resources and things like that. So what I was going to say is like just seeing that as your role, Director of Family Empowerment. And I probably should have said
Associate.
Associate. I'm sorry.
It's all good. No,
cut that. Associate Director of Family Empowerment. But SchermCo, I read the description off the website, national social impact implementation firm that offers strategic advising, organizational development, and implementation services to schools and education-focused organizations that support underserved communities. So the way that all ties together, and what I wanted to bring up in kind of the question, or honestly just kind of giving my feedback on it since I'm kind of learning more about what it is, it's having that idea of dignity and empowerment and the under-resourced part. There's an organization I was telling you about, the Christian Community Development Association, where one of their core tenets was doing this thing kind of like community listening. So if I'm understanding you correctly, in many ways, that's kind of the work of SchermCo, is to be that community listening vehicle so that rather than kind of folks like you and I just sitting in a room trying to strategize, how can we help families, you're getting all that data directly from families, from the communities, and trying to do that direct implementation. Is that a good understanding?
That's a great understanding. It's all about listening to families, listening to families and then being able to co-create solutions with families. Because families have their own collective genius that they bring to the table that can enhance what the school has got going on too for the better. And so it's about listening to families. Listening to families is what I believe we're going to put it on the shirt soon, but it's going to say listen to families. And so being able to help schools not operate in silos of like, oh, this is like essentially what you just expressed. This is what we think families need. No. Let's actually ask families what they need. Let's open that door of communication so that you can co-create these solutions with families and build true relationships. Because I feel like the best relationships come when people feel heard and when people feel seen. And so this is that opportunity to help families feel heard and seen in the schools, being able to be that beacon in that way, or be that for families.
Yeah, and I love the word you use that you got, co-create. That's the key, building relationships, because you and I have probably both seen there's a lot of organizations that are meant to try and serve or help others that have that as part of their ideology, but struggle to achieve it because it is kind of a lot of like top-down solutions as opposed to that co-creation. Yeah. So I love that difference, and I think it's a key difference in doing the kind of development work that y'all are trying to do. I want to talk about your wisdom in the room, blog and podcast. You're a man of many talents, so we have a lot of ground to cover. But just because that was what you kind of shared a little bit about at 0 Day is obviously SchermCo is making a huge impact. Your role there is vital and important. And I resonate with that on the kind of nonprofit organizational level of like really focusing on that development and empowerment for families in the community. So this is another piece of kind of who you are, what you do is you have this blog, you have this podcast, and I've heard you speak about things about the power of rest and vulnerability and mental health and all this. So maybe kind of talk about that part of Mathu and what you're doing to help be a positive influence.
Yeah. So wisdom in the room in general, I would say has always been this outlet for me to express myself. That's how it started. It first started off as a blog back in 2019. And that's when I realized, oh man, I'm a writer. And I've always been writing since I was a child. I always used to write. But the thing about it was this tool for me to process my emotions, because I'm not always the best in processing my emotions out loud. My girlfriend might agree with me on that. But when I sit down and can write, and I write it down and able to process it in my mind, it comes out in the different creative ways. It's a creative outlet for me to express my emotions in a lot of ways. And so the blog post, you might have anything dealing from mental health to football to rest to, anything that I might be stewing on creatively for a while, and it just comes out. The podcast was one of those things where I always wanted to do, and I kind of was scared because I didn't know if a lot of it's just perfectionism. But when I got to going, it felt like this was this opportunity for me to, one, still express myself, help others discover the truest versions of themselves, but also kind of shine a light on athletes. It's for a while. So a lot of my earlier conversations on my podcast were with athletes and just kind of asking them about their transitions or just taking a peek into their minds and allowing them to share the wisdom that they have with others.
Yeah. Where I'm going to get a little bit more of this at the end, but like where, just to do a quick plug, like where can people kind of find some of that? I know there's like a link tree on your Instagram, but how can people just kind of connect with some of that content you've created? Yeah,
thank you. So Wisdom in the Room is on all streaming platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. I know you can find it on there. I also have an Instagram page at Wisdom in the Room, and I also have a YouTube page at Wisdom in the Room, and so you can find it there. And
we'll do another plug at the end. We'll have all the pertinent links in the show notes and the posts, all that good stuff. So, but one of the things you've talked a lot about kind of through that and through when I've heard you speak is rest. So I don't know if you remember the 3 bullet points you shared at 0 Day, but like maybe just talk a little bit about why you've been kind of like, at least as far as us getting to know each other, I've just seen you like really like want to talk about rest a lot and why that's so important.
Yeah. I think I still have the bullet points on my phone, but rest, it's becoming important to me because as I get older and the more I get into this work as a professional, I'm realizing that like it's easy to get caught up in the grind culture and this feeling of connecting my worth to my productivity. And so like really making room to just be, to do the things that I enjoy without, any type of guilt. And like, I've been reading this book, and I think I talked about it on 0 Day, but it's a lady, her name, please forgive me, I believe her name was pronounced Trisha Hersey. But she has this nap ministry, and she has this book called Rest is Resistance, a manifesto. And I've been reading that, and I've been consuming it. And I resonate with it, the idea that we need to rest because we are not robots. We are not human doings. We are human beings, and we need to be able to connect with our spirit, connect with who we are, connect with others in community, and just find rest. And she has this quote where she says, like, rest is anything that slows you down and makes you listen to your body and connect with self. I probably screwed it up, but essentially it's stuck with me so much. Like, rest is anything that slows you down and makes you listen to your body. Because so many times we are on autopilot. We get up, drink some coffee, we go get on the computer. Before we even talk to or have conversations with ourselves, we over here having conversations and emails with somebody at work. And it's like, it's not even a judge. I'm a victim of it myself at times. But I just am more compelled to live a life in which I can rest in who I am as a human being and not have to judge myself off of my worth of what I can produce or how much money I have or how many clients and all, yeah. I just want to be a human being and connect with you in that way.
Yeah, it's very hard to do because you're right. We don't often, we just, all of us we're in that culture for the most part of it's about grinding, productivity, achievement, all this stuff. It's funny. You could argue that this podcast is right in line with that because even though we're talking about rest, certainly didn't lead with that up top.
True.
Had to feel like, what's the achievement? What's the, which you don't want to diminish those things, but it's like, and it's trying to find that balance,
Yeah, it's a balance. But the thing I would say about your podcast, and it's a creative, it's a form of self-expression. And I feel like in some ways, it's an outlet that allows you to be. I feel like at least, it feels like you are operating in your being. This is brings you joy. This is bringing you, this is allowing you to connect with another human being, and so in that, we're not necessarily thinking about, I have an 8:00 meeting that I need to, we're enjoying each other and we also building, like we're connecting as two human beings right now.
That's a really good point. I appreciate you saying that because it's easy, like with whatever we're doing, to get in our own heads about it. But you're right. There are intentional spaces we can have where we're just connecting, being our truest selves, resting, all of that. And I love that idea, rest is resistance. I love that there's even a thing called the Nap Ministry. I think that's incredible.
Please, just tell you. It's on Instagram, the Nap Ministry. Buy her book, Trisha Hersey, Rest is Resistance.
I think I started following after your talk. I mean, that's what a concept. But one of the things you shared too is like rest being productive. And it's like some of these ideas, you just kind of have to flip them on their head a little bit and like talk about in a context we're not used to, because when you're, like someone that's like myself, I deal with anxiety or you want to achieve or this, that, the other, rest can feel so counterproductive, but to actually flip it on its head and be like, no, it actually is productive, like to actually stop and listen to ourselves. One of the other things you talk about that I think is a really important topic is like vulnerability.
Yeah.
I'll give you the floor on vulnerability. I mean, I know there's a million things you could say about that, but like, why is that also kind of a focus for you? Or mental health, all that stuff.
Yeah. Vulnerability, because it used to be very hard for me to be vulnerable. But I honestly realized that vulnerability is that key to connection. I think that, I thought for maybe a 3-year stretch from 2019 to 2022, 2021 maybe, I thought I was really vulnerable, and I was working on that through my outlets, through podcasts, writing, sharing my feelings and my emotions and letting myself be fully seen, right? But then, when I got a relationship, that challenges you too to be vulnerable because your partner really sees you. And for me, that also made me realize that I still have work to do in that way. And I guess vulnerability is just allowing yourself to be seen, fully seen. That's how I like to think of it. And when you allow yourself to be fully seen, yes, you are exposing yourself to somebody rejecting you, but at the same time, you're also exposing yourself to being connected to someone in a deeper way because you are able to express it. And I feel like when I've been vulnerable with others and it has been received, it has led to deeper relationships with people. And people like, dang, man, I didn't know. I thought I was the only one feeling that way. Like, especially like when I write and people like will hit me up and like, man, you literally took the words right out of my mouth. Thank you for sharing it. I needed it. And then it's like, for me, I'm like, dang, I didn't really realize that's how you was feeling. But opening up is not easy, but it's worth it. It is.
It is, because you're so right. It's that sensation of, for you, but for also the person receiving whatever you're opening up about. It's that, wow, I thought I was the only one going through that. Or I thought I was the only one experiencing that. Yeah. And that can resonate on a number of different levels. Mm-hmm. But just the willingness to share, the willingness to tell your story is, I think, powerful and gets, can be taken for granted. But you're right. And there's like, vulnerability is like an onion. Like there's,
Layers.
so many layers.
So many layers. Yeah.
Every time, I don't know if you ever feel this way, but anytime I think like, all right, I've hit like peak vulnerability, or I'm in the flow. It's like, no, there's always like a level to go deeper, because it takes a lot of hard, honest work with yourself, about yourself, and your relationships to others. Like, that's why I always respect people like you to talk about it, or you want to focus on it, because that goes into the achievement and like a lot of stuff we're talking about with grind culture is, it's not, our world is not a very encouraging place to be vulnerable.
Yeah, you're right.
It can be scary, but it's just so crazy because almost 10 times out of 10, we all kind of have that reaction when somebody finally is vulnerable, or we get like, wow, I didn't know. Like, it's just empathy,
Yeah. No. I think to piggyback off of what you said, that our world does not, it does in some ways pay to not be vulnerable. So some of the most successful, air quotes, successful people, financially at least, they have faked it till they make it, or make it, completely disconnected from vulnerability in some ways. But that vulnerability is the key, I think, to actually rest and being and all of those positive things that we truly desire from this life.
Yeah, 100%. And it's like, we're also lifelong learners. Like I have friends that have a podcast called The Learner's Corner. The whole idea being like, I think they tie together, because to me, to be alive, to be human is to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Like any sense of control we have over the chaos that is existence is maybe like, it's like we can have some amount, but like very little. To just try to connect with other people is an act of vulnerability.
Yeah.
Every day we wake up, it's like you're kind of faced with new challenges to be vulnerable. But I think it all everything we're talking about goes together, because the learning piece, I look at someone like yourself and all the different like jobs you've had or what you've achieved. It's like, you have to be someone that's committed to learning and being able to say like, I don't know what I don't know. I'm willing to humble myself, step out there, learn things or whatever. And it goes hand in hand, because it's like, when you have that mindset that, failure itself isn't fatal, as they say, like you're just willing to like put yourself out there more and say like, I don't know, teach me. I want to, like that's, I have guests on or people I'm getting to know. I'm like, that's why I want to know about you. Why I want to learn about your story and all that, because we have things we can teach each other. And it goes back to that, where you're talking about with SchermCo, the co-creation, like there's just all these common themes in there,
Yeah, I do understand that. I feel like learning just it revitalizes me, and then in the ability to just learn from somebody else's story, I feel like that's where wisdom comes from. That's like, when I think about wisdom in the room, that's really what it was for me, is like learning from somebody's story, or what did you glean from your perspectives or your experiences that you can now share with others. Being the youngest child, I feel like I gleaned a lot of wisdom from older siblings, older relatives, mentors, and things like that. So I kind of love to relish in hearing people's stories and learning from their experiences. Yeah.
So we're kind of wrapping up our time a little bit here. I mean, like you're one, I mean, I always say this about all my guests, but again, I think it's true. Like, this is definitely an episode I look forward to going back and listening to, and being able to just kind of soak in exactly like a lot of the wisdom you're saying. I think wisdom in the room is an apt description of your podcast and blog, and like just kind of who you are, what you strive to do. I mean, we follow each other on social media, and I'll see you post like almost daily, like just wisdom. I mean, encouraging people. So already being such an encouraging person, already giving such an encouraging interview. I like to ask guests when I have the ability, like, what to anyone listening, I mean, what's something that you would give encouragement on, if you could, like, what's a message you would just like want to leave people with, aside from, what we've already talked about, or even going deeper on something we talked about?
I always end with this. This is like when I taught social emotional learning, while I was at Invest Collegiate. That was one of the things I did, and this was during the pandemic, and I would have something like a talk show. But at the end of every show, I would end it saying these 3 things to my students and have them repeat it. First thing I would say is love yourself. The next thing I would say is to be kind. And then the last thing that I would say is to speak life. And I always end with speak life, because they say power, life and death is in your tongue. For agreements, be impeccable with your word. Your words matter, right? So how you speak to yourself, how you speak to other people, it all matters. Those would be my 3 things, though. I would say love yourself. Gotta love yourself. If you don't love yourself, you can't love nobody else. Be kind. You don't know what somebody else is going through, but also be kind to yourself. You're a human. And then the last thing is to speak life. Your words are like seeds. So only speak what you want to see grow. Speak life. That's what I would say.
No, that's powerful, man. I think you just gave me the title of our episode, honestly.
Yeah.
Those 3 things, but also just that speaking life, because in the short time we got to know each other, or what I've consumed of the content you put out or hearing you speak or whatever, to me, it's whoever you're talking to, whatever the audience, whatever you're focusing on, I kind of view that as like, that's just what you emanate. Like, it's kind of who you are. Like, you're desiring to speak life into other people.
Yeah.
Whether that's broadly, specifically, whatever, like you just, whoever that, like you're trying to speak life.
Yeah.
I don't know if you see yourself that way, but.
No, I thank you for making that a little bit clearer for me. But I think that is how I like to see that's how I think about it. Yeah. That like whoever I'm speaking to, just trying to speak life into that person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This one's kind of just for fun as we wrap up, but I noticed like in your description on the SchermCo website and whatnot, but the word just travel keeps coming up. You love to travel. We talked about traveling a little bit before we got on the podcast here. So just kind of for fun as we're ending, like what are some of the best places you travel to, or some of your favorite ones, or like, that could be a whole nother episode.
I know this could be a whole nother episode, but yes, I love traveling, especially when you have a wonderful traveling partner, him and your girlfriend. So I'm grateful for her. But some of my favorite places I've been: Seattle, beautiful place; Grenada, beautiful place. Where else? I just came from New Orleans, and that was very fun. Stay away from Bourbon Street, but outside there, those are some of the those are some places I like to travel. And also Asheville, that's one of my favorite cities.
Asheville, I don't know if I can say it's underrated, but I feel like it's a place a lot of people should strive to. It is a cool place.
I like it. It kind of matches my who I am internally. That's Asheville. I would that describes me.
Yeah, and one place that we for sure need to get you to, because you said you've never been there, is Ohio.
Oh.
Cleveland, Ohio, Akron, Ohio, Canton, Ohio. Listen, I'm an Ohio boy. Those are my people. That's where I come from. Ohio. Listen, I know. We moved to Charlotte. I get it. Like, you can. What right do I have to defend Ohio when I moved away? But very, very underrated place. A lot of cool stuff. A lot of cool people there. So look, I know it's not going to be first on the list for vacation planning, but maybe if you're on a road trip or something, you make a stop. I don't know.
Go see the Hall of Fame Museum.
Yeah,
there.
Yeah. So, listen, Pro Football Hall of Fame. There's a lot of good stuff there.
I believe you. I do believe you. I feel like Ohio has some good people, so it has to be a pretty good place.
Wow, what a perfect note. No, it is. But thank you. I really can't thank you enough for just coming on the podcast, being willing to share your story. And I mean it. Like, we're going to do plugs here in a second where people can follow you, but write down the handles, follow on social media or whatever. Yeah. If you just want to be encouraged daily and by Mathu and just get a sense of the work he's doing to fight for the highest good of other people, help people be their truest selves, to empower people, affirm their dignity, all that stuff. But before I wrap up, I would be remiss. So give me the links, SchermCo, the Wisdom in the Room, drop all that again, social media, just how can people get connected with you?
Yeah, so if you want to connect with SchermCo, you can follow you can follow us on Instagram and on Twitter, SchermCo. It's SCHERMCO, SchermCo. We have a website. The website is scherm.co, SCHERM.co. And then for my personals, for my socials, you can follow Wisdom in the Room. It's Wisdom in the Room, at Wisdom in the Room on Twitter. We're on Instagram. And then for my personal social media, is History in the Making. It's History, the letter N, THAMAKN, History in the Making. That's where I'm on social.
Go follow Mathu, go follow SchermCo, go follow Wisdom in the Room. And My friend, thank you again for making the time today. This was great.
I really appreciate you having me. Thank you. Thank you for giving me this time to talk.
Anytime, man.
Yeah.